What does Apple hope to get out of this particular revenue stream?
I mean, look, the technology in the classroom has really become a battleground in the last 5 years between Microsoft and Apple and Google. And it's all about hooking users when they're young and keeping them loyal, right? Because eventually school children will become students, become university students, and then become workers and have a lot of personal spending as well as swaying what their companies buy.
Yeah, get them when they're young, right? That's right. That's the strategy. So basically, why weren't they that successful when it came to the iPad? And how did they compete with Chromebooks?
Well, the interesting thing is that Apple was successful, that they owned the education market for most of its 40-year existence, including when the iPad came out in 2010, that you really started to see iPads being bought in large numbers by school districts. And what changed really in the last 5 years was Google. And they made a concerted effort to go after first universities and then K through 12 markets in the United States with Chromebooks, these kind of stripped down low-cost laptops, and specialized software that was really ideally suited for schools and school districts. And you now see that Chromebooks are 60% of the mobile devices bought in US schools last year, and iPads are 12%, and they were 26% in 2014.
Well, I mean, it's sort of no wonder, right? Because these iPads are still $299, even with the school discount. That's just too much, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a cost issue, right? Chromebooks are sort of $200 plus, and they have keyboards, and iPads don't, and things like that. It's not just about the cost of the hardware, though. It's also that Google has this kind of easy to buy and use collection of devices and software. So schools can basically lock down Chromebooks so kids can only use a handful of pieces of software or corners of the internet. They can be easily replaced if they're broken. Kids can log into their Google accounts at home or at school on their school-provided laptops. So it's really about the ease of use rather than the particular cost of the devices.
And it doesn't help that Apple's software is a bit clunky when it comes to iTunes and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the real shortcoming here, and Apple didn't really address that today. So they made a lot of promises about their new software for the classroom, about how easy it would be for teachers, for administrators, and for kids. But Apple has a bit of a credibility gap when it comes to software, that a lot of their software for consumers is not very good. And they made a lot of promises about the ease of their software for classrooms, but they have a lot to prove when it comes to usability.
Do we have any indication yet as to whether if you're a Google Chromebook kid, you'll stay Google all your life, or you switch to Apple anyway when it gets to university?
It's a good question. I mean, it's really too soon to tell, because the Google push in classrooms has really only been in the last 5 years or so, it's not a lot of data on what happens to those kids when they graduate into universities and into the workplace. But you can certainly see the transformation if you go to any university setting, that kids are using Google Docs, and they're using Gmail, and they're not using Microsoft Office products, and they're not using Apple software.